because in Africa, one of the biggest problems that is impacting on our economic growth, on our political success, and cultural, leapfrogging are the guns that are still disturbing us as a people, as a nation. So on Africa Day, we always make it an effort that we drum to silence the guns. I hope next year you will join us in this uh, beautiful campaign, So to talk to the question now, uh, I would like to start off by saying our journey of domain names started with an old technology already in the 90s, and we did not use what we have as EPP. We have a legacy technology, which was pretty much a web-based, and that enabled everybody to use it as a tool to play with. That created a groundswell because by the time we started to implement EPP in 2012, we already had 450,000 registrations in 2012. So you can imagine legacy is responsible for growth. It was at the bedrock. And today, we still have people who are still holding on to legacy. We have over 21,000 people who are holding on to legacy registrar. But because they see it as their own tool, there's your IT practitioners who don't want to go through registrars who believe that they can manage their own space on their own. Come 2014, we saw when we had launched EPP, this is what we call the Extensible Provisioning Protocol. We saw a huge growth that moved from your 400,000 to 700,000 name registrations. Now, the market was growing also, the economy was seeing growth, but more than anything, corporates were now looking to trade 24 hours. The web was offering that space that if I were to give you my phone number, if I do repairs on sewer systems or taps or water leakages, my number will only enable you to reach me between the working hours, which would be 7 to 5 in the evening.
Yeah.
But my web page enables you to still go on after hours, different time zones. I am accessible. So we saw a huge move of our corporates to adopt the co.za namespace. So today we owe our growth to the corporate in South Africa. And once the corporate being in the lead, our citizens then followed. They adopted the co.za namespace. Two, the other thing that happened, we also had the support of government in the sense that when they created a regulator, when ZEDNA was established in 2012, because remember, co.za is older than ZEDNA. ZEDNA as the regulator follows the namespace. So when
Okay.
ZEDNA came into the namespace, they did not come in and interfere and want to be the operator. They allowed for that space to be run in a professional manner by private sector and NPC in particular. So that is one element, government interference, because when it comes to information and data, citizens become very suspicious when government wants to run and administer their internet and internet connectivity. But here, it was not the case. The third element that assisted in the growth is price. We had the lowest price, I think, or most affordable, if I may say. We had a single pricing plan for both creates and renewals. We didn't have different pricing suits. So our table was just level. And the other element that we brought in was we had a policy that allowed for any person, any citizen of the world can subscribe to a co.za. You don't need to be a South African or with your business registered in South Africa. So that on its own equally changed things. The only names that were moderated were names like org.za. Those names were moderated and were only to be acquired by entities that were NGOs, non-government organizations, or political parties. They would access org.za. But any other commercial player, commercial entity, you'll have to use co.za, web.za, or net.za. So we had these four products that we were running up until 2014. Then 2014 brought in four more products, which I can talk to later on, which were your GTLDs. Right now, it is the four CCTLDs that we administer. And Chair, we sit currently with over 1.3 million names under our administration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very, very insightful. Barak, what will you, from the vintage point where you sit, for CCTLDs, the DNS space in Africa that has really recorded some good success? What factors will you say has contributed to this?
Thank you very much, Lawrence, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues from wherever you are joining. My name is Barak, as was ably introduced by Lawrence earlier, from the Africa Top Level Domains Organization. And just to go right to the question you've asked, I must say that collaboration among the various individuals and institutions interested and involved in the domain name ecosystem in Africa has been key. Let me say that Africa is unique in terms of development globally, as most of us may know, and in many quarters we are referred to as the Global South, partly because of where we are located, but also partly because of where we stand with respect to development. And I must say that there are a few things that come into play. First and foremost, when we reflect or look at internet technology, definitely we draw its roots to the US and Europe, where the first and most important instruments, the first and most important experiments took place in the late 60s to mid 70s to early 80s, which were key to growth and development of the internet. I was looking at the video of the previous webinar that was organized in this series, and my colleague Bob Ochieng from ICANN actually made a presentation on the state of domain names that are registered globally. And while avoiding to beat the drum that has already been sounded, we have more than 300 million domain names across all top-level domains globally. Out of these, roughly slightly over 150 are country code top-level domains, and a slightly bigger number represents generic top-level domains, for lack of a better word. And this is to say that there seems to be almost equal value in terms of how the global netizens look at the domain name industry in country code and in generic top-level domains. But of course, The key thing that differentiates country code and top level and generic top level domain names is, one, countries are sovereign. Two, of course, most of the states or countries in the world are defined by the United Nations, and within the United Nations there's a body known as the International Standards Organization, which through a standard known as the ISO 3166 determines what is a country and what is a territory and what is not a country and what is not a territory. On the other hand, we may be aware that generic top-level domains are in the ambit of ICANN, and ICANN determines who, in terms of registries, operate the various top-level extensions that fall under generic top-level domains, and to some extent, it also determines some of the registrars that actually play or operate within this particular space. But having said that, I want to bring us back to the history of the internet. The earliest history for most of the countries in Africa that were early adopters of the internet is around 1992. But when you look at the earliest history of the internet in the US and Europe, you're talking of 1960. So from 1992, this is actually an adult when you think about it. So even us in Africa, when it comes to growth and development of the domain name system and the internet, I want to look at it that most of our countries are now in their 25th year of anniversary, if we are to talk about internet adoption and penetration. And we know that age 25 is a youthful age, and that is when you are trying to understand who you are. You have not even you've barely discovered yourself when you think about it. And using that analogy, I want to think that that's where Africa is. From the perspective of AFTLD, or Africa Top Level Domains Organization, we have seen a lot of development in the last 10 years. And when I say a lot of development, I would like to say that 15 years ago, less than 50% of country code top level domain registries in Africa were automated. But right now, we are looking at more than 95% automated in one way or the other. Let's not even go into the question of whether the solutions that are automating the registries are from within or from without. But I believe that is the next frontier. That is where we are moving at as a continent, because most of the country code top level domain registries that have been automated have been using solutions that have been developed by our colleagues from other parts of the world who have been kind enough to support in making sure that one, we are automated, and two, we are able to serve the global community of internet users. So I think that is one important fact to note. I also want to draw the attention of our listeners to the fact that up to around 1992, not even up to around the early 2000s, from 1992, we know that most of our country code top level domain registries were actually in one way or the other operated technically by Randy Bush and probably some of our other colleagues from the global north. And they were kind enough to find ways in which they would train local people from within the African countries to take over the management and the leadership of this country called top level domain registries. So what I'm trying to say is that we are still in a phase of growth. We are still in a phase of understanding ourselves, and probably this could point to the number of domain names registered across all top-level domains in Africa, which, as per the last study that was conducted by the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, is less than 2 million. So we are looking at more than 360 million domains registered across all top-level domains on the globally, and we are looking at 2 million registrations across all TLDs in Africa. Statistics point to the fact that in Africa, of these 2 million, country top-level domain registries form the bulk, which means that probably, of course, there is attachment to the sovereignty. The sovereignty issues, most of our brothers and sisters in the African continent are proud of their countries and proud to be associated with their countries, but it is also indicative of the fact that penetration is still low, which in itself is a business opportunity. Let me look at it that way. But again, the internet and the domain name ecosystem in themselves constitute what I would refer to as the knowledge economy. You need to have a certain threshold of knowledge for you to be able to participate in this particular economy. And one of the biggest challenges most of the African countries are facing is actually the issue of digital literacy, which is key to making sure that the knowledge economy makes sense or is significant to the community. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that this far we have come is because of partnerships across all stakeholder groups, be they government, be they academia, be they the private sector, be they civil society, who in one way or the other have championed the growth and development of the domain name ecosystem on the continent. And strategic partnerships are still going to be key in making sure that we grow the domain name ecosystem from where it is to where we desire it to be in the next couple of years, or let's say by the end of this decade. As a matter of fact, if you look at internet statistics on the African continent, it is claimed that there are 500 million internet users on the African continent. The bulk of these are on social media, unfortunately. So which may not really give a fair view of the role that the internet is actually playing in social and economic development on the continent. But having said that, it is still important that we come together as stakeholders across all stakeholder groups to make sure that we are playing our respective roles if the domain name ecosystem is to contribute to growth and development of the African continent. So I'll stop there. I have tried to look at the theme from a wide perspective, but I'll take it back to the moderator for further guidance before I can come in with other comments.
Thank you very, very much, Barak. That was indeed in-depth. And the focus, like you said, has been the growth, like you said, has also been very much due to partnerships, stakeholders coming together to help grow the ecosystem.